And this is part of being a man. Slay the dragon. What's the dragon? Putting the big grand vision of saying, I'm going to go after this. Will you come with me? You can draft behind me because I'll take the heat rounds. I'll be in front. I'll take the heat. You go behind. I'll be the lead cyclist. You draft behind me. You be that person. People are looking for someone to follow. Be that person. Be a man maker. Be a man.
Welcome back to the Man Maker Show. We are dedicated to helping men become stronger and more intentional leaders because the fight in every man's life is real and you were created to overcome. We know that hard times make better men, and through adversity, we find our inner warrior. Thanks for showing up and opening your mind in order to make your future greater than your past. Here's your host, Brad Wolgamott.
Welcome back to the Man Maker Show. Bradley Wolgamott coming to you once again from San Jose del Cabo. I hope you're doing incredible. I hope you're enjoying the podcast and the content and delivery. And I'm not doing it to get the likes or shares, but I'm doing it because I am convicted that there is a thing called menopause going on out there. I read this the other day. Menopause, right? It's just the emasculation of men. And I know there's a fair amount of ladies that listen to these channels, and you probably have sons, and so you want to raise them up to be great men, to be leaders, men of impact. Maybe you just want to be a better leader yourself because there isn't men in your life, and there's nothing wrong with ladies listening to what I'm talking about. But my primary target is men. And I hope you're not offended by that. But if you are, that's, I guess, your choice. I'll leave that up to you. But I've really enjoyed being with you and sharing these topics over the last few years. And I'm hoping it's the beginning of something great. And I hope you care to share them with as many people as possible if you feel it's appropriate and be a timely thing for them. Tonight's message is going to be a two-parter. And I try to keep these around 25 minutes or so. I just feel like it's a good threshold of have the time driving to work or what have you, or maybe on a treadmill for a few minutes. So I try to do them relatively short. But this is a big subject, as most of them are. But this one, when I was putting my notes here, like, there's no way this is getting done in one. So I'm going to break in part one and part two, and I hope you'll give me the latitude to do that. But I want to talk to you about something you'll have to learn how to do if you want to be a significant leader. And that is to learn how to create a message, how to create a cause, how to create a following, a brand, right? Something that says you before you walk in the room, right? Nike became a symbol, right? They were a swoosh, right? If you take a hot tub, you could call it a jacuzzi, right? That's a brand, right? That's, give me a Xerox copy if you're in my age group, and that's a photocopy. But that's a brand. I mean, it's what walks into the room. If you wear a Rolex, right, it carries its own weight, its own prestige. And those are all material things. But what I'm talking about is you as a human being. I believe a lot of you guys that are listening to this are in the process of becoming something great, but you're also a part of something great. And that's a very significant conversation. When I was in the early throes of developing one of my first businesses, my primary business, I had an epiphany. It came to me one day, and it really wasn't that brilliant, but there was a TV commercial on back at the time, and it was about Pepsi, and they were creating the new generation, or as they called it, the generation. And what they meant by the generation is that they were going to say yes. They were going to go for it. They were going to live large. They were going to charge the hill, right? They were going to do great things in their life. And so when I decided to really get building my business, I recognized that I wanted to brand myself as a new generation, the generation. And I heard an explanation years ago by named Bill Hawkins, and he talked about when you get to the stage. And the stage was, you're driving your car, you're learning to do a stick shift, and you're trying to figure out how to shift it, and turn indicators, and music, and looking both ways, and all that, and you're herky-jerky, and eventually it just gets to be automatic, and it's what he would call the stage. I would call that conscious competence or unconscious competence. Somewhere in that area, in that level or area where you're consciously aware of what's going on, and then eventually it just becomes part of you. It's the difference between teaching something and imparting something. It's something that releases out of your presence. And I think this is a very important thing. If you're going to build a company, if you're going to build an influence, I don't care if you're doing the internet, or you're doing it in person, or you're running a business, or you're involved in any form of marketing empire, you have to have something more than your product, something more than just your own swagger, something more than just the profitability of the marketing plan, something more than your stocks or whatever you're going to promote in terms of why we get behind. A lot of guys go to work for companies because they get stock options. Why they got behind this company because they paid them so well and the stocks didn't go up. That was their reason. I'm talking about something bigger than that. And I'm talking about the message, the meaning behind the message. What are we trying to do? Steve Jobs said the most powerful people are the people that can tell stories. The storytellers. And if we look back historically, the things that we remember were great stories, whether it be Braveheart or Rocky or something maybe a little more gentle or kinder, but kinder. It was the messaging of the heart behind the warrior, the heart behind the human being. And we have to learn how to communicate this. There's a saying that tell me the facts and I'll learn. Tell me the truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it will live forever. And when that kind of sunk into me, I realized as I was out studying the most significant leaders in history and the most significant leaders that I was able to get around and sit at their feet and learn from, they were incredible storytellers. I could connect with their stories at so many different levels, whether the hero, the villain, or if it was the humor, or it was the challenge and the failure and the humility, overcoming that. But I was drawn to storytellers. And I think all of us probably have a bit of that. So I want to talk to you about how to build that. And this is a big subject, and there's been books written on it over years. I'm just going to give it to you in Bradonomics, right? Just kind of street level. I think I learned this instinctively. I have to say, not that I'm playing myself like a genius, I went to work and said, what makes these men and women great, and how do I take pieces of them? So I had a mentor in my life. His name was Greg, and he was like the brightest human being I'd ever met. When he listened, he was just dripping intelligence. Med school guy, super intelligent. I mean, I was admired him. And then he had a brother named Brad, who was another trait, but he was the opposite. He wasn't super book intelligent, but he was the most human intelligent person I ever met. His EQ was off the charts, and he was hilarious and so relatable. And I thought, man, if I could be the combination of that guy and tell a story about Brad, could I somehow build a brand around this? And what I realized was that you need to have some kind of a rally call, right? They used to call it a flag bearer. That in war, the guy that carried the flag had the honor, and as long as the flag was moving forward, the army was moving forward. When the flag went down, that was retreat. When the flag turned back, retreat. But they followed the flag, right? This became the most important, and that's why we talk about the Star Spangled Banner, right? Is understanding the importance of our flag and what it represented in times of potential disaster to American history of ever even becoming a country. So we have to have a story that basically says, come on in, join me, run with me, fight with me, charge the hill with me, right? You've probably all seen the World War II memorial where there's all these hundreds of men, right, just planting the flag, right? Just not hundreds, but dozens of men trying to take the hill in Japan. And I've heard the stories of even in the Revolutionary War that they turned all the cannons to fire on the flag because they knew when the flag went down, the men would give up. And that when that particular scene was over and the smoke cleared and the sun came up, there were hundreds of bodies piled against the flag that was kind of leaning. And the last bastion of loyalty to their country was to take their dying body and lay against the flag to keep it up. Even though the person that was holding it or the stance that was holding it had been destroyed, men piled on men to keep that flag because it was the flag that kept the men going. It's a bit of an emotional scene, imagine, because that could have been a grandfather, a great-grandfather. We're going back hundreds of years now, but to think that could have been someone in your family, and if you think of to modern day, if that was your dad or your son, the emotion behind that's massive. And so when I was in the early throes, I was trying to figure out, what does that mean? how do I build a new generation? And my theory is that people were looking for something fresh and something new. It reminds me of MAGA and MAHA, right? The Make America Great Again. And it's amazing how the liberal media has taken the MAGA and turned it into something like misogynist or racist or some horrible, anti-Semitic or whatever. These crazy things. But what is wrong with the statement, make America great again? At a simple level, it resonates with so many of us because I want to make America great again. I want to be part of that. Right? I want to be part of moving America into the greatest country that it can possibly be. One nation under God, indivisible, right? In other words, it can't be divided up, even though the world's trying to divide us. How do we do that? And then along came RFK, and he threw out the Maha. And then along came Elon. He was like Black MAGA, right? They're all kind of thinking about what is that? Why Black MAGA, right? Because he's a dark horse. Because he's not born in America. But he's probably the greatest inventor of modern history. I don't think anybody would argue that. I mean, he's certainly top 5 if you want to, debate me on that someday. We can. But I think it's safe to say that these between Trump's MAGA and Maha making America healthy again. I mean, my wife is not political in the slightest bit. She's Canadian, even though she's an American citizen now. But when Maha came on, she's like, "That's my jam. Now I'm in." Right? Chuck a chord with her because she doesn't like the health of America. We don't like traveling the world and seeing the obesity problem. We don't like seeing overweight children. We don't like seeing the over-vaccination, and I'm not going to get into that, but I don't like seeing the numbers of autistic children skyrocketing, and some of the evidence that's being presented. Right? We want to make America healthy again, and she just got all about it, like eating organic and getting rid of GMO and reducing our sugar and dealing with all different types of insulin resistance and how that leads to other diseases in life. She's just all about it, right? It was her passion, and that's how she finally got involved in the last political race. Whether it agrees or not, it's just an interesting thing that it was these causes, right? And I can remember in early days hearing a guy named Bill Britt, who to this day is still a hero of mine, although he passed away a number of years ago. But he talked about a thing called father power. And it struck me as a young man, 18 years old, who was struggling to get the respect of my father, to be someone that my dad respected and honored and loved. And even though I think he had some of that, he just never was able to express it. So I never felt it. I don't mean it's a diss to him. I just never felt it. And for some reason, I always felt kind of attacked by him. Maybe that was my own insecurities. I don't know. But the reality is that when someone said father power, I'm like, one day I'm going to be a daddy. And I want to be a good daddy. And I want to raise quality young men and young women. And I want to have some father power. And not because of fear, but because out of love, right? That obedience is not a will to not do wrong. It's really obedience becomes a grateful response to something so good and beautiful that I want to do well and do good because of the love that I received, not because I'm afraid of being punished. Father power is not being big, bold, loud, and nasty and cracking the whip. It really means you create such a culture of honor, such a culture of love that anybody around you wants to be part of this and they want to be a great part of it, so they do more. They want to contribute more. They want to get involved in your business, your marketing, your campaign, your nonprofit, your investment, what have you. Need a bigger picture. So there's 4 components I'll share with you that you need to have in order to build this story. First of all, you need a hero. The second part of that, you need some very clearly stated goals. And I'll break these down in a minute, right? Thirdly, you need the challenges and state them clearly that you're going to have to overcome. And then talk about the transformation, right? What's the change that when we win, what will this look like? And for me, Father Power, when it hit me, was like, I want to be a great dad. I want to create great dads. I mean, I was 18 years old, but I knew one day I wanted to have kids. I wanted to be a great daddy. I wanted to raise great young men, raise great young men and women. I want to be part of that. So the first component of that is you need a hero, right? You need that point person. Now that's either going to be you, or if you don't have the confidence for that, which I didn't, then you point to someone. But you need something to point to, and rarely is it going to be you. But ultimately, if you work hard enough, your body of people will point to you and assign you to that position. You can't make yourself that person. I don't think people will follow you if you declare yourself the king. I think people follow you because you earned their love and their honor and respect because of all the things we talked about in the last 30 episodes of the Man Maker Show. You apply those in your life to a point where people want to follow you. They want to call you their king. And that's a dumb word because it's old. But, their leader, their hero, their mentor, their example, their coach, call it what you want. People need that hero. So it's either going to be you, or it's going to be a memory of somebody or a name of somebody, right? I'm building a podcast, and I really have to muster up the courage for one of my dearest mentors, who has been my most dearest mentor for the last 10 years, and that's Peter McKenna, who recently passed away. And I'm building an episode around him completely. But just to give you a quick light of that, he's a hero, and he will be a hero. He's not a martyr because he didn't, that's not the kind of heroship he was, but he was such a gentle, kind man that he makes me want to be a better man. I can hold him up as an example of how I want others around me to be. Versus me, the example, you create somebody. So you be an example, find someone and edify that person. And the second thing you have to do is you have to have some clearly stated goals. Now, this is a big deal. A lot of people are going to struggle with this because they got the beginning, the struggle, and we got the big picture, but it's too big, right? It's like, I'm going to run a marathon. Well, I'm going to start running 20-mile training runs. No, you're not. You're going to injure yourself and not make it, right? You got to take it into bite sizes. And so for me, as I was building my business, my initial goal was I wanted to establish some profitability, right? I wanted to make some money. I wanted to be able to say, I am making some money. So you need to have some very clearly defined goals that you're going to attack first and get done. And then your rally cries, here's what I did. So step 3 is the challenges you need to overcome to make the goals real. So my first one was to make some money. The second goal was to make enough money that I was able to retire my wife, right? That was a big goal. To me, I remember hearing this years ago that the status symbol of the 90s was not your BMW, your fancy car. It was the fact that you made enough money that your wife could come home and be a full-time mom and raise your kids. That was a huge status symbol. And I'm like, yeah, right? I'm down here in this beautiful, beautiful place down here in Cabo. We've been here for months on the end of the year. And everybody asked me, first question, what do you do, Brad? I go, I'm a husband and a daddy. And they're like, oh, that's cool. So you're retired? I go, I don't know what that really means. I try to be nice about it because I'm never going to be retired, like really tired. I'm never going to be lazy or sit on my butt. I'm as busy as anybody I know, but I'm doing it on my schedule, my cadence, the way I want to live my life. It's not the Brad Wolgamott show. I'm not trying to glorify myself. I'm just trying to let you into the windows of how my brain took me through this process of building a brand, a story, something people could rally around, right? And so the big picture was freedom. The big picture was impact. The big picture was legacy. I wanted to create enough wealth to leave a great inheritance to my family and my family's family. I wanted to be able to take care of my wife's family. I want to have enough financial war chest that I could leave a legacy, that I can make impact for generations. I believe it says in the Word of God in the Bible says that you're supposed to take care of your kids. Like, you got to think 2 and 3 and 4 generations. And I built a message around that. And I want to encourage you, whatever you're doing, you got to find the big picture and then break it down. The first step might be X and then Y and then Z. For me, it was making some money. Then it was retiring my spouse. And then it was being able to retire myself. And then it was able to retire others. And retire is that weird word, but it's one word that people understand, where they were free from the gravity of finances. Meaning it didn't control every decision they made, everywhere they went. For most people, money runs their life. And they say, oh, that's just not true. I say, well, let's just walk through it, right? What car do you drive? Why do you drive that one? More than likely, it's gas mileage or what you can afford. Let's talk about the house you live in. Why do you live in the house you live in? Right? It's probably what you can afford. Why do you live in that area? Because that's probably where you work to make money, right? So what school do your kids go to, based on private school or public school, based on where you work to make money? Right? Does your wife work or not work? I mean, well, she wants to work. That's fine. I'm not saying she can. I'm just saying, have you ever given the option to not have to work? I want to be the hero. And I think there's a lot of men, specifically many of you listening, that want to be so successful that you can say to your spouse, honey, I want you to spend the rest of your life pursuing your grandbabies, your dreams, your arts, your passions, your people. I want you to do the things that matter the most to you. We are done ever needing to make money because I was able to slay that financial dragon. So for most people, when you move into stage 3, the challenge is people don't want to talk about it, but I don't think you have a real story without a villain. I don't think you have a real story without a foe. I don't think you have a real story with something that you're going to have to grind. And for me, I had to overcome fear of failure. I had to overcome fear of rejection. I had to overcome fear of middle child, never feeling like I fit in. So where do I fit in the big world? The challenges are on and on and on and on. You got economic challenges, you got personnel challenges, you've got coaching challenges, you've got conflict in relationships, you've got visions that are going to be different, shared as people cast a vision for life. Right? How do you bring that all into one house? There are many challenges. I would say the top 3 or 4 for most people is FOPO, fear of people's opinions. I would say your own fear of saying you're going to do something and then not doing it and feeling like a failure. That's real. I would say that economics are always a challenge. Fatigue is always a challenge. Do I have enough energy to go? Can I physically do it? Am I capable and able? When I was in the throes of building my business, I worked from 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, typically, till 5 or 6 or 7 at night. And then I built my company from 7 to 2 or 3 a.m. and got up and did it again. I lived on 2 and 3 and 4 hours of sleep for years, 2, 3 years to create total freedom. It was hard. And I was freaking wiped out and tired. But looking back, there is no question it was worth it. So you got to have a hero. You got to have some goals. You need to think about this. You need to articulate it, and then you got to own it. Then you got to talk about the challenges, talk about the adversary, talk about whatever it is. Like in today's world, the big adversary is woke politics, right? This assassination of leadership. I could go off today, but I'm gonna leave it for another time. But you just look at the new leadership being placed in the United States leadership, and they're all about trying to get rid of a lot of these things that I believe have made us very weak and very divided. But that's my opinion. You can have a different one. That's fine. I'm just sharing with you mine. So the idea is you got to make this message, right? Once you got the challenges on, once you've been able to deal with the transformation subject, like when we win, this is what we're going to do, right? We're going to live this way. We're going to travel. We're going to do things with our children, with our parents. We're going to be able to be involved in nonprofits. We're going to be able to connect with people. We're going to make impact. The transformation will be real. This is how you begin to build the guts of your story and your message. Because all great messages start off with just a very simple, ordinary day. Hi, my name's Brad and I'm your friend. I'm just a dude. I'm 18, 19 years old, nobody from nothing. But something got planted in me called father power. And I got a hold of wanting to be a great man and wanting to be a great part of a great thing. So I want to be a great man to do a great part in a great thing. It captivated me. And it resonated out of me. And again, it's not the Brad show, but I'm trying to make this real for you. This is how this all happened. And if you want to, you got to get to this place where your message, your transformative message, just imparts, it releases out of you. You don't really have to tell your story. You just go, blah, it just kind of comes out everywhere you go. So it starts off ordinary, and then you become something extraordinary. So a couple keys. Your story, your message, your brand has to be, and this is going to be key number one. I think I'm going to have 3 keys for you. Number 1, it's got to be about the listener. Okay? If your story is just about you, I'm going to be honest with you, nobody cares. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. Maybe not nobody. In other words, you're going to tell your story, but the purpose in your story is to connect with people so the story's really about them. I go to this incredible church in a little town called Ephrata, and I just love my pastor to pieces. And every message he delivers, he tells a little story about his life. And then he tells, and usually the stories are a little embarrassing about him. Some failures in his life, and some collisions, and dating episodes, and crashing on skateboards, and they're all kind of funny things. Knocking his teeth out, and it's just they're usually some kind of a humility drop, if you will. And then he ties that in to this message, and all of a sudden I'm really drawn to his message because he humanized it for me. So you need to humanize it, and then you got to make that message about the listener. Because if you don't, people get tired of your story about yourself. And I know some really great storytellers, but they are the beginning, middle, and end, and people about halfway through going, this is dumb. And they don't even know why it's dumb, but it's because they're not drawn in the story. They're not on the journey. So you got to make it about other people, right? You got to share your heart, and I'll make this my second key. You got to share your heart. You got to get transparent, because people aren't drawn to your perfection, right? They're drawn to your imperfections. And what did you do to overcome it? How did you, and I know these are overstated words, but how did you organically, how did you authentically, how did you begin to, through your vulnerability, through your persistence, overcome the hate, the stuff, the fear, the doubt, the challenges, right? The raw guts. And, I'm going to dive in this for a second. I've been pretty public about my divorce and my failures. And I think I've said before, but in a lot of cases, most people don't want to talk about the failures. And I don't talk about my failures for the purpose of diminishing them. I don't talk about them to glorify them. I don't talk about them to wreck myself. I say it because I'm human, but I'm not that human that I was. And so to be able to authentically connect people to your message, they need to see themselves in your stories. And I think the more transparent you are with your story, the more people go, wow, this dude's real, man. This dude's raw, right? My good friend Don McKenna, he was a horrible alcoholic. About took his life. And then he got set free. And he went to A and he worked through it and went through the steps. And when he tells the story, I'm just like, whoa. I get drawn in because I want to see him win. I want to be part of his victory. I want to win with him now. But I'm drawn in to be part of his victory. Then I want to be part of the team. And then I want to be a team, but that all comes as a result when people make you the team. So for the sake of trying to put this into two messages, I want to share with you 4 things you're going to build on that. First one, what's your greatest fear? Share your greatest fear. Be honest about it. Gosh, why is it so difficult for people to expose that they're afraid? And we know that fear is not like a horrible thing, right? Because the opposite of fear, if you will, I'd call it love. But let's say it's courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is willing to do the right things in the face of fear. So expose that. And then secondly, follow it up with what's your greatest hope, right? Your greatest fear, what is it, right? For me, it was seeing my kids grow up and I had to go to work. I was a picture on my dad's desk for 25 years until I was a man, and then there was no picture. He retired. I was this little 4-year-old boy in the family picture behind the reception desk of my dad's dental office, and God bless him, my dad's awesome, but I don't want to work my children's entire life and be partly involved. When my son decided he wanted to play baseball, dude, I built a baseball field, I built a baseball team, I hired professional coaches, I was all about his dream. When my daughters wanted to pursue things like Hallie, when she decided she wanted to get in gymnastics, man, I did everything I could to get her the best instructors, the best classes, go to the best events so she could pursue it with passion. And I'm not saying I did it all right. Don't get me wrong. Hey, Brad. Okay, for some reason I may be on that vein. I hope not. I really don't like being that kind of person. But again, my greatest fear was seeing my kids being raised by somebody else. My greatest hope was to be able to be an awesome father, to be an awesome husband, to be able to create generations of wealth and legacy and impact. Third piece is share your greatest victory. And your greatest victory to this point might be, I don't know, like for me, getting out of high school was a victory because I was ADD, dyslexic, special ed in second grade, went to a special little school for kids like me. I was not that sharp. That was a big victory. I got my professional certification in tennis player through the USPTA. That was a big victory to me because I wasn't that good of a player, but I was good enough to get certified, to go for it. That was a huge victory. So share your victories, not for the purpose of bragging, but for the purpose of sharing the grind that it took to get through that so far. And you just kind of leave a glimpse of that, right? Because what you really want to do is challenge people to get after them and then share with them your toughest loss. And that's a tough one, right? For me, it was my dad's love that I just couldn't seem to do enough for. And when I chose to not pursue my career, no, first one, when I decided not to pursue college, he was so disappointed. I remember my dad coming in my bedroom one day, and I was studying in college, and I only took a couple quarters of college. I didn't finish them. I dropped out both times. Terrible. But I remember coming in to me, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm doing my homework. I'm really working hard." He goes, "Wow." I think he said, "I'm proud of you." But he said something like, "Good job," or "Keep it up." And it was a touching thing for me because I wanted my dad to be proud of me, but I dropped out both times, so I was a complete loser and failure. That was a tough loss. I was in a terrible car accident at the beginnings of my pro career, and it was because I got in a terrible car accident after losing a big match, and drove wildly home and wasn't paying attention and smoked my car and put a bolt through my knee and busted up my face, and it's a mess, and hurt the guy that I hit hard, and it's tough. But you have to learn that tough times don't last, but tough people do. And that's really what it's about. That's why you share your toughest loss, right? So your greatest fear, your greatest hope, your greatest victory, and your toughest loss. This is how you build your message. I'm going to move into part 2, so I'm going to break here in a second. But I really want you to think about it. Go back and listen. Take some notes. Write some things down and start building your brand. If you're going to build a company, if you're going to build a message, if you're going to build a movement, if you're going to get people to follow you, if you're going to be a man of impact or a person of influence, you have to understand these components. And I don't claim to be the expert. This is just Bradanomics, like just simple blue collar. This is what I'm thinking about. How did I do what I did? Because I don't get how I did it. Sometimes I wonder myself. Again, I'm not saying it to brag. I'm just saying these are some tips I think will matter to you. Go out and read lots of books on it, study, but you have to build a brand. You have to build a message. And this is part of being a man. Slay the dragon. What's the dragon? Putting the big grand vision of saying, I'm going to go after this. Will you come with me? You can draft behind me because I'll take the heat rounds. I'll be in front. I'll take the heat. You go behind. I'll be the lead cyclist. You draft behind me. You be that person. People are looking for someone to follow. Be that person. Be a man maker. Be a man. I'm proud of you. You can do this, but you're going to have to grind, and you're going to have to go harder than you are now. Stronger. You're going to have to dig deeper, read more, listen more, share more, get more transparent. Tell your fears, tell your losses, tell your victories, share your dreams, and say, do you want to come with me? Because one of the greatest movements we have today is FOMO. If people feel like you're going somewhere and they're not, FOMO kicks in. They don't want to miss out. When people didn't want to follow me, I'd say, that's fine. But I'm going to promise you they will come when we meet again in the future, and you'll regret the decision to not come with me because I will be there waving at you, wondering why you didn't come with me. Sounds arrogant, sounds bold, but that's what I did, and I believe it's what it takes to get people to truly follow you. And that's a big component of being a man maker. Bradley Wolgamott, out.